What is up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of F1 Fantasy Pole Position. It is Wednesday, June 25th. My name is Ewan, and on today's episode, I'm going to get into my transfer targets ahead of the Austrian Grand Prix. If you want my team selection video, that's going to go up right here. It's already been up on Monday, so just click that little card, and you'll be able to watch that there. So it's just going to be transfer targets today, team selection, already happened on Monday. There's going to be another Q&A stream tomorrow night on Thursday. So if you're watching this later in the week, make sure to check that out or join me live, because on Wednesday night, when this is going up right now, I will be in the movie theater watching F1 the movie. Pretty excited to see it. But yeah, I've got some transfer targets today. And if you like what you are seeing on the YouTube channel at F1 Fantasy Pole Position and the F1 Fantasy Pole Position Paddock, make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel and just drop a thumbs up on the video. It helps me out every single time all of y'all do that. So I always appreciate it. So thank you, thank you, thank you. But yeah, let's just get right into it. Alrighty, but before we get into it, I did this on Monday. I'm going to do it again. The deadline mega stream, it is building. It's getting here quite quickly. 3.5 hours of me on here on this YouTube channel, just chit-chatting F1 Fantasy from the end of FP3 all the way through the quali. Yes, that's right. So not only is it an extra special long deadline stream, usually I just do an hour, it's going to be 2.5 hours of that, and then a whole other hour of quali watch along. I've been promising to watch along for a while, so I'm going to do it for the Austrian Grand Prix. So join me for a little bit of the 3.5 hours. I hope to see you guys there. So yeah, if you subscribe to the YouTube channel, click the bell, you'll get notified whenever I go live. Let's get into it here. The home run picks for the Austrian Grand Prix: Nico Hulkenberg and Fernando Alonso. Not a lot to be said. I think these guys have been broken down. As you can see here on the screen, I've got points per race, points per million, quali, race average last three, points for a good price rise, and points for a great price rise for each of them. Nico Hulkenberg can DNF on Sunday's race and still get a great price rise. So he is in 57.4% of the global top 500. I expect that to go up this week. I think the only reason it wasn't above like 85% is because Lando Norris became a bit of an option for F1 fantasy managers at the Canadian Grand Prix. So some people went with Fernando Alonso. As you can see here, he's in 69.8% of teams. So he became a little bit more popular. He wasn't really set to rise in budget. However, he did with 22 points in Canada. So great job by him. But over the last 3 races, Hulkenberg is averaging 15 points per race. Alonso is averaging 6.7. Hulkenberg leads the field at 2.43 points per million as well. As you can see here on the bottom, 399, -2 in Monaco, 32 in Spain, 15 in Canada. So the German driver has been crushing it in F1 Fantasy recently. And Fernando Alonso, he's had a couple of DNFs in here: Miami -13, Monaco -16, but 14 points in Spain, 22 points in Canada. It seems like the Aston Martin is either getting better or the rest of the grid is getting worse. I can't really tell if like they're just staying put and some of the other teams are sliding below them, like Alpine, maybe a little bit of Racing Bulls we saw in Canada, Haas as well. But Alonso, he's avoiding the DNF bad luck right now, and you can see it in F1 Fantasy. On the quali race average here, Alonso has qualified at 7.7 over the last 3 races, and his race average is 8. That's because I took out the Monaco DNF because I didn't want it to like alter it too much. So on the races he's averaged over the last 3, he's finished 8th in 2 of those finishes. So great job by him. Nico Hulkenberg here, 14th average qualifying, but 9.7 race average. So he's getting those positions gained, those overtakes. I mean, I don't think we're going to forget anytime soon that overtake on Lewis Hamilton down the Spanish Grand Prix stretch in Barcelona. But Nico Hulkenberg, Fernando Alonso, they are pretty easy transfers in if you don't have either of them. I have Nico Hulkenberg. I plan on bringing in Fernando Alonso. If you have Fernando Alonso, I would highly suggest bringing in Nico Hulkenberg. And if you have both, you're a lucky duck. And let me know in the comments below what the rest of your lineup decisions are. So great job by y'all. Next up here is just a one-man kind of transfer option. Pierre Gasly, 5.8 million. He's 3.8% in teams of the global top 500. Points per race over the last 3, -1.3. Points per million over the last 3, -0.9. However, points for a price rise this weekend, 0 points for a good price rise, and 5 points for a great price rise. So the Frenchman is in our thoughts, and How many times have we been here now? If we look on the bottom of the screen here, over the last 6 races, Saudi Arabia, Miami, Imola, Monaco, Spain, and Canada, -17 in Saudi Arabia. That's when a ton of us brought him in. Then 18 in Miami, 3 in Imola, and then a bunch of us were like, okay, he's going to do well in Monaco. DNFs in Monaco with a -20, 10 in Spain, 6 in Canada. So while Pierre Gasly is a pretty fun option, he's a little bit of an F1 fantasy troll at this point, and I find it kind of hard to trust him and put him in my squad. 3.8% of the global top 500 still have the Frenchman in their side, so they've picked up like 16 points over the last 2 weeks if that's where they've gone. But it just feels like we're going to get tricked again. I can't shake this feeling. Plus, Alpine have looked a little shaky over the last couple of races. Well, more Colapinto. Gasly didn't really have a good Canadian Grand Prix either. We'll see if Austria is set up for them a little better. I think Gasly finished maybe 10th here last year. Can't remember off the top of my head, but he is an option. He's probably outside of Alonso and Hulkenberg. He has the lowest points threshold out of all the tier B drivers to get another price rise. So 0 points for a good price rise, 5 points for a great price rise. All these numbers are taken from the f1fantasytools.com website on their budget builder. However, if you want to go out and extend it further, make sure to check out Pat's website. That's linked in the description below. You can like kind of be like, if they do this in Austria, what are they going to have to do in Silverstone? It's a great resource. We'll get into more of that on the Q&A stream tomorrow night and the deadline stream on Saturday. Moving on to a couple of Tier B differentials here with Carlos Sainz and Esteban Ocon. Sainz is in 29.8% of squads, so not as big of a differential as I initially thought, but 8.3 million over the last 3 races, 7.3 points per race, 0.85 points per million. And then the quali average is 15.3, race average is 11.3, so he has picked up some places there. Points for a good price rise this weekend is 3, points for a great price rise is 10. He has been okay over the last 6 races. He's been avoiding those early season DNFs, 12 in Saudi Arabia, 0 in Miami, 12 in Imola, 2 in Monaco, 7 in Spain, and 13 points in Canada. So the Spanish driver is a great pick. If you check out my team selection video, which I will put a card up right now, should be in the top right somewhere, you can check out what I was saying about Carlos Sainz. I think with my current build that I'm thinking, I'm going to be 0.1 short of him. So that's where my eyes kind of wander over to the right-hand side of the screen here with Esteban Ocon, 7.7 million. He's a better differential at 6.4% of the global top 500 having him. 7.7 points per race, 0.95 points per million, 13.3 qualifying, 10.7 race average. Points for a good price rise, 8. Points for a great price rise, 15. However, Haas have done pretty well here at the Austrian Grand Prix, despite what we think of them sometimes. They have got 2 double points finishes here in the last 3 seasons. So great job by them. They seem to always pick it up in Austria. And if you look at just the stats here, Ocon is outperforming Carlos Sainz in every single category here. Points per race, points per million, quali, and race average over the last 3 races. He just needs a little bit more points in the good price rise and the great price rise. But with the way Haas have been going, they kind of qualify kind of low. I know we got 13.3 there for Esteban Ocon, and then they rise through the field. So 15 points seems ambitious, but it could happen at a high overtake track like Austria, which is 6th on the calendar for overtakes in F1 Fantasy over the last 3 seasons. And we know Ocon can kind of mix it up, get those elbows out, and kind of battle with the best of them. He's kind of been one of the more underrated drivers of the season. 6 points in Saudi, 7 points in Miami, -18 in Imola, 10 in Monaco, 3 in Spain, and 10 in Canada. So 2 out of the last 3 races, he has double-digit points. So that is interesting. And because I can only get to him instead of Carlos Sainz, I am kind of leaning that way. And the fact that he's cheaper and that he's a little bit more of a differential makes me think that maybe that's a sneaky option. I was talking about this in the team selection video. Where can I zag where others are zigging and stuff like that? Like, we've got the Hulkenberg and the Fernando Alonso trains, but ideally we want to be the F1 fantasy managers who are setting the trend. Like, it's like, I want to get Esteban Ocon in, and then everyone else next week ahead of Silverstone is talking about how Esteban Ocon is a slam dunk F1 fantasy pick. Like, that would be the ideal scenario. I have 3 transfers, so I have a little bit of flexibility. I'd love to not use them all and keep rolling that third one, but it is what it is. So those are the tier B differentials. Next up here, if my thing will click, is Yuki Tsunoda. Price, 13.2 million. Pick percentage, 0.2% of the top 500 have him. 6 points per race over the last 3, 0.43 points per million over the last 3, 14.3 quali average, 14.0 race average. So hasn't really been moving up all that much. But points for a price rise, 13 for a good price rise, 25 for a great price rise. And I hear you kind of being like, why is that an option then, Ewan? Just because Red Bull have been quite strong at this track, Yuki has to put it together at some point here before the summer break. And it's a little bit of a gut feeling. Personally, I don't think I'm going to be able to kind of mold a team to get Yuki Tsunoda into my lineup. 13.2 is like right on the fringes of where I can get. I think in my T2 squad, I'll look at it a little bit closer on the deadline stream and other stuff, but I can get Yuki Tsunoda into one of my teams. And because I'm recommending him here on the transfer targets, I don't want to recommend something that I don't do or I don't believe in. 11 points in Spain, 12 points in Canada. So he is building some positive momentum here. And he's kind of what I was talking about with Esteban Ocon. He's in 0.2% of the global top 500 teams. And it would be great if Tsunoda puts in like a 25-point performance. That means that at Silverstone, he's going to be pretty easy for another 0.6 million rise. So those are the kind of options that I'm trying to look at with 3 free transfers ahead of the Austrian Grand Prix. Yuki Tsunoda, Esteban Ocon, like, who are these assets that I can jump on early and potentially ride for 2 or 3 races, like Nico Hulkenberg managers that went with him in Spain. They've been loving life for the last 3 weeks. Fernando Alonso managers who went there last weekend in Canada, or even the weekend before that in Spain. Even though he was 4.5 million, he still scored you a boatload of points and then got you that sneaky 0.6 million price rise last week or 2 weeks ago at the Canadian Grand Prix. So that's where my brain is kind of like, I want to get one of those assets in with like an Esteban Ocon, a Yuki Tsunoda. I was thinking about Kimi Antonelli for a second there, 18.3 million, but I think he's set to drop no matter what he does outside of a race win, which, I don't know, he got his first podium, so I guess the next step is his first win, but I don't see that happening for the Mercedes driver. Final batch here is Tier A differentials. Talked about Tier B differentials with Carlos Sainz and Esteban Ocon. Now it's time for Charles Leclerc and George Russell. Leclerc is 24.3 million, 3% of the global top 500 have him. Over the last 3 races, 27 points per race, 1.12 points per million, 5.7 quali average, 3.3 race average, which is really, really good. 22 points for a good price rise, 44 points for a great price rise. So great price rise might not be on for the Monegasque driver. However, if we look over his last 6 races here, 25 points in Saudi Arabia, -8 in Miami, 24, 37, 27, 17 in Imola, Monaco, Spain, and Canada. We need to see what Ferrari is bringing to the track. There are rumors of updates coming. Charles Leclerc has a pretty decent history here. He won in 2022, finished second in 2023 before an 11th place finish last year in 2024. So part of me is like, this is where we'd get really different. But because he's just in that Oscar Piastri price bracket, it's pretty difficult to go anywhere close to Charles Leclerc. If you have the budget to maybe bring him in as a second A-tier driver, you're running like a Kick Sauber kind of build or something like that, but you can't get up to like triple McLaren, then that is something you can think about for sure. But he's a definite differential. 97% of the global top 500 do not have Charles Leclerc in their squad. And they're still in the global top 500, so it must be working for them a little bit. So that's where my head's at. That might be a wait and see until Friday practice. If Charles looks on it, it could be a time to maybe attack Ferrari as a differential with Leclerc. George Russell, on the other hand, 22 million, coming off his win at Canada, 47 points, huge 6.6% of the global top 500 have him in their squad, 23.7 points per race over the last three, 1.08 points per million, 6.3 quality average, 5.3 race average over the last three as well, even despite a really difficult Monaco Grand Prix for the Mercedes driver. 3 points for him in F1 Fantasy. Points for a good price rise, -8. Points for a great price rise, 12. So Russell being 2.3 million less than Leclerc and having a way lower threshold to get a good and a great price rise means that I'm inclined to pick him over Charles Leclerc this weekend at the Austrian Grand Prix. Mercedes, thank you to Traveled Bones on the team selection, kind of pointing out that Mercedes have been quite strong at Austria. Despite the heat that's supposed to be coming this weekend, they dealt with that okay in Canada. It was a little bit cooler than what we're going to see in Austria. But they do have updates coming. There were some suspension updates that they brought to the Canadian Grand Prix as well that obviously seem to fix them. A 1-3 double podium is not too shabby. So George Russell is also in my thoughts as a differential option in Tier A if you are starting to go towards the two kind of premium driver, two premium constructor build in F1 Fantasy, which I will be very, very jealous of. I'm at 114.5 million. Leapsfrog, actually, 2024 defending champion in F1 Fantasy, had a great post on the F1 Fantasy Tools Discord earlier this week, talking about how budget building is great and all, but at some point, we're just going to have to take our lumps and go after points. I don't know when that point in the season is going to come for me specifically, but right now, I'm in a really good spot to build budget, and I want to keep getting there. I think maybe getting to 120 million will make me feel a little bit better. So I'm looking at a team this week where I can get to 2.4 million, maybe even a 3 million rise in budget, which would be huge, which means that something is going to go drastically wrong in F1 Fantasy this weekend. But we're starting to get into that area where it's we are 10 races into the season. There's only 14 races left. If you've got that hole in your mini league, we have to start thinking about it a little bit in F1 Fantasy. But that'll do it for today's Transfer Targets episode. I'm not going to update the team selection because I'm going to do my stream tomorrow night. I did the team selection video on Monday, so check those out. And don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the YouTube channel if you like what you are seeing in the F1 Fantasy pole position paddock. Like I said, while you're watching, if you're watching this within the first 2 hours after I posted it, I'll be watching the F1 movie. I'll give you my thoughts about that during the Austrian Grand Prix Q&A stream on Thursday night. And like I said, join me for the 3.5-hour mega stream on Saturday. It is going to be pretty epic. I'm looking forward to it. I'm not entirely sure how many liquids I'm going to have. I'm going to have a granola bar halfway through to power me through the whole stream. But I hope I will see you there to join me for some feisty action at the Red Bull Ring. I'm hoping it's going to be a pretty epic race, and qualifying is usually quite fun in Spielberg, Austria. But like I said, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel or the podcast if you're listening on the audio side. But once again, thanks for listening, thanks for watching, and I will talk to you next time.